Men and women were never meant to be at war. When we work together, we build homes that last. But somewhere along the way, we got lost. Today we're talking about the role of both fathers and mothers in the home, and how embracing our strengths instead of fighting each other can change everything. This is the Purpose Pursuit Podcast. Let's get into it. Really excited about today's conversation. So what we'll do, we'll just go with brief introductions and just kind of, what does fatherhood and motherhood mean to you in your introduction?
All right. Yes, man. Super excited to be back, man. A great podcast. I'm Sean Boyd, born and raised here in Memphis, Tennessee. And I guess, when I think about the definition of fatherhood, I think about, many different things. I think mentorship. I think advisor. I think friend. I think confidant. It's just so many things that go into that definition. But I think it's number one, just a very important thing to have in everyone's life, man. From if you got a daughter, son, the list just goes on and on. So I think fatherhood is the most important thing when we think about the journey in life. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for having me, Nikayla Boyd, and I'm also here, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. And what I think about motherhood, pretty much the same thing. Complements fatherhood, hopefully, should anyway. But we are pretty much everything. The nurturer, depending on the household, can be the provider, the person where the kids literally look to get everything from. And if we are not there, of course, it can be traumatizing. We really just set the trajectory for where our children go.
Yeah, it's all good.
So one thing that's I think is often missed in today's homes is mothers and or fathers, right? Usually the father's not there. But let's just kick things off with the importance of that balance, and whether you want to pull from your examples of your own lives or whatnot, or just anything outside your lives. But how important is it to just have that balance in the home? Just between your husband and wife, and then what does that look like, and how does that impact the children in the home?
Yeah, and it's so funny, man. We were talking about this earlier. We both actually were raised by single parent moms. I know my wife had her dad, until the age of 5 or 6 in the household?
10?
10,
no,
okay.
Oh, in the household,
Yes.
3.
3, okay.
3.
So
I
early
don't have
age.
any memories.
Yeah, yeah. And the same with me. I didn't have my dad in the household at all. And so I think, as you grow up, my dad was present. I would go different weekends or different holidays, but I always felt like this void that was missing. And so, I think when we think about just journey, think about journey and really fatherhood, what we talked about earlier, both are so important in anyone's journey. And I think, you have this void when one is lacking, and I think especially for men, speaking for myself, I've always tried to maybe fill this void. If that was, having, looking for attention with friends or relationships, or just, that self-confidence. It's like, if you don't have that father, you're kind of searching in other places to really fill that void. So, again, I think it's so important to have really both. But when we really look at fatherhood, especially for men, speaking for myself, man, it's so very important. Yeah.
So, and then just from that perspective of, mom, like how does that balance, that father side out for the kids?
Can you ask me that again? I'm sorry.
So just from the father's perspective, he's going to bring a set of things to the table that the mom can't, right?
Yeah.
And so just want to speak to how does that balance his side of it out to where it actually impacts the kids in a positive way?
Yeah. So actually, can we just take a step back?
Sure.
Because I wanted to respond to the
Okay.
initial question.
And if you want to jump in, and this is a straight up discussion.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You know, so feel free to cut off and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, because he, mentioned how it felt to be a man without a father. But we also, as women, need the affirmations. We need the acceptance from fathers. And I'll just be transparent. I spent a year in therapy last year trying to just, really get over not having a present father. So it impacts, I would say, both, all genders, if both parents are not present.
So true.
So, yeah.
And I just want to add, even, I guess, go a step farther. I think we've been married. It'll be 19 years this year, right? And so I think, not necessarily having a blueprint of what, motherhood and fatherhood together looks like. We have both great moms, hardworking moms who really set the bar high for us and really worked hard to make sure that, we wasn't lacking in any areas. But even with that, we were lacking. And I even think in our relationship, being, again, transparent, we did not have the necessary tools, right, to be there for each other because of that void that we talked about earlier with the fathers not being there. So we had to really learn on the job, if that makes sense. And it's still 19 years and we're still learning. And so I guess going back to your original question, both being there, but I go a step farther, being there and being present, right? I know, again, a lot of my friends, fathers are in the household, but always gone or always doing something. And so they're like, yeah, my dad here, but really not here. And so I think you have to be intentional when you're there to really be present as well.
Right, so the two big things that I've heard is the intent and then like self-help, right? So, it's a lot of children growing up without parents.
Right.
And at some point they're going to want to be in a relationship that may end up, getting into marriage and whatnot. So, from your own experiences, what worked for you all? And obviously everybody's journey is going to be different, but what worked for you all? And what could you tell somebody that's kind of thinking about that marriage, but not really realizing that they didn't have the blueprint and they may make some mistakes? Like what would you tell somebody that is about to kind of go down that journey?
I feel like you got that.
I think initially you asked, like, how did we figure it out? We fought it out. We did. Like,
so true.
We had some knockdown, drag out moments.
What Tamar said, love and war.
Love and war.
So literally.
So but we had to decide, do we want this to work? We first love each other, and then we want our kids to have both parents. So we really had to just, sit down, come to Jesus and say, are we going to work through this, or, what are we going to do? So I think we really we fought it out. And we both got into therapy. So again, with the self-help, that was critical because, you can point out somebody else's flaws all day long. If you ask me that question, I can tell you everything that's wrong with them. But no, seriously, like you can, we can point out other people's flaws, but we had to kind of do the work ourselves so that we could build kind of what we wanted our marriage to look like and what we want our kids to see.
Right.
And I'm kind of getting personal. You can stop me all you
you're
want,
good.
So I'd imagine, obviously everybody kind of getting married, they kind of go through therapy, not therapy, but counseling with the pastor or not before they get married, right? But like, what prompted you all to say, you know what, I don't know if you did it together or did it individually or just did a combination, but what prompted you to say, okay, like we need to work on self to make us work?
Right. And, I guess basically what you just said, I think most pastors or churches now require like a premarital counseling. We were young when we got married, I think, 25, 26?
25.
And so I even think with that, we didn't really know like what counseling should look like. And I even think like what marriage should really look like, to be honest. But I think, when you go through those things, you're still on this honeymoon phase. So you like, we'll go to counsel, but again, we go on to shop for rings afterwards or to do the cake tasting. So I think when you think about marriage or even life, right, you always like, plan for the best to happen. but then really don't know when we get to the worst of things how that should look as well or could look. And so I think, being again transparent, I'm sure you want to add something to that. I think with us, we started counseling like together, but I think it goes back, if you don't work on, as Nikki said earlier, if you don't work on yourself first, you really can't be a help to somebody else, right? And to be honest, I saw her start going to counseling. I'm like, man, it's working. Like things that, would have been, addressed a certain way or this way. I'm like, it's actually working. Like I see her, she's getting better, but even without me, And so I'm like, I want to do that. And, having a good partner, you would suggest like, have you thought about counseling? And I honestly, being real, I think that's most men or most people, I should say, we only think about counseling sometimes when you get to the low or something happens, right? And instead of saying, how can I be proactive to really avoid it from happening? And so I think, again, a combination of seeing her in it, her saying, well, hey, how about you try this? And then we actually went through, I want to shout out Stacey Spencer and Rhonda Spencer, New Direction. They were one of the first couple counseling sessions that we did. And it was just different because most of the time we went to folks before, it was like we'll go to a man and Nikki would be on the side like, of course he gonna say that because he a man, he gonna agree with you. And I may be like the same thing, like, okay, you got a sister on here, of course she gonna agree with you. But when you're in like this couple session, you really get to hear both perspectives. And so it kind of like, okay, cool. I see how, maybe she thought that way because I'm hearing it and they don't have a buy-in. Like they're not trying to come in and destroy what we got. They really want to help. And so I would suggest that too, maybe like couple sessions. Yep. But before you get into all that, you got to work on you. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you want to respond?
No, I think that was it. Yeah.
So, I mean, the work on the self piece, I always say, if I'm going to be in a relationship, if I'm going to link up with somebody, I would rather their cup be full, right? I'd rather my cup be full. When I pour into you, I want it to be an overflow.
So true.
When you pour into me, I want it to be an overflow.
Right.
Or if you hadn't done the work, maybe I have, maybe she has, maybe I hadn't. But if I'm pouring in, I'm losing everything that I got. Now you're full and I have nothing else to give.
So true.
I'm no good to you anymore.
Right.
So, to the point, I think it's really important. And there's this stigma about therapy, about counseling, when there's actually something that could benefit.
So true.
But when you think about the grand scheme of things, a lot of people who would like to get in relationships probably need to like look at self. They think they got it together. But if they come from like homes that did not have the blueprint,
right,
broken homes or whatever it may be, you probably just need to go ahead and say, okay, I'm gonna work on myself. I'm good, but I may be missing something.
Right.
So I think it's so important. I'm glad you guys touched on that.
Yeah.
I think that is what's missing. With a lot of individuals that would like to be in relationships.
Right.
Kind of want to like shift a little bit. Just how do each role complement one another? So you got the man of the house, you got the woman of the house. How does the roles complement each other within the home?
Yeah, so I think again, that's why it's so important to, as you just mentioned, find someone that is equally yoked, as we like to say in the church, right? Someone you could really pour into, and you learn each other. Like again, we've been together 20. I don't want to get in trouble with it. I don't want to get in trouble with it. I thought you were going to jump in.
19 years.
We're married 19, but we met in high school.
Yeah, we dated 11th grade. So whatever that is.
It's like 24 years we've been together. So like
more than that.
25.
I have to pull out the calendar. It's 2025. We started dating in 1998.
Really?
Yes.
Whatever
yes.
that
So
math
whatever that math is. Yeah.
And you went. He on the show. He said you went to, I think,
Central.
Okay. Yeah.
Well.
You can't tell?
No.
Oh.
You got green on today.
Green today?
No, it's not. But
So we ain't got to sport the blue. They just know over.
Just know, right?
Yes. But yeah, get back to it. So I think you have to learn each other, right? It's like any team, right? You think about the Grizzlies or whatever team you watch, you have to know what you're good at, right? And so, when we first got married, I laugh. I can't put nothing together. Like, that ain't my ministry, right? So, like, even putting the remote together for the TV, that's not what I do, right? But I felt like, when you get married, sometimes you look at what you think it should be. Vice versa. I cook for my family, right? I enjoy washing the clothes, right? Folding the clothes. Like, I watch TV, I'm good, good movie on. And so I think you have to learn each other. You have to learn each other's strengths. You also have to learn each other, weaknesses as well. And so I like to, when I think about her and what she means, number one, man, I'm saying this in front of you, but like, anything that I'm thinking about doing as far as, with my business, or if I have a thought, like, I'm going to come to her first because I really value her thoughts and her opinions, right? I know that it's not to harm me or hurt me. It's to make me better. It's going to push me, right? And then, sometimes I remember back in the past being more immature, younger. She has a strong sense of like, discernment. Yeah, she could tell. And, many times I'd be like, I'm with this person, that person be like, she wouldn't say it like rude, but she'd be like, and I wouldn't trust it. But the older I got, and I'm like, man, you were right. Or, you were thinking this. So I always like to say she's like that owl on my shoulder. And so I don't question anything anymore. Right, anymore.
Let me jump in and say anymore.
I did. But so to answer your question, I think you just have to know what you both bring to the table, right? And then you just kind of like look at what the strengths are and multiply those. But then when we look at the weaknesses, how can we look at those and really work towards turning the weakness into opportunities as well? Yeah.
Yeah. And we try to show that to our kids too. They know that neither of us is perfect. So we do try to, just set an example for them as far as what fatherhood looks like and what we've learned motherhood and, parenting and just being adults looks like, so that they don't have to, we hope, go and figure it out. Or since we have, tried to figure it out, we'll keep the door open, certainly, so they can ask us any questions. Like, we've kind of already done it. And what we haven't done, I'm sure we'll continue, we'll like you said, continue learning each other, because we got married at 25. We'll be 45 this year. We're not the same people who we were, when we first got married. So, so just like you said, just continuing to learn each other and recognize strengths and areas for both.
Right. So what does leadership look like in a home with a married couple?
Yeah. I think you need both. Like, I think, again, there's going to be seasons where I'm super strong, right? There's going to be seasons where she's super strong and I'm weak, vice versa, right? So I think that's the definition of a partnership. Like, you have to, I hate when people say 50-50. It's never going to be really 50-50, right? There's going to be times where I need to, I need you to lean in more, and then I'm doing something. Like when we were in school, we both have our doctorates, right? And so I remember a time I had to travel, and go for my doctorate in Nashville, driving monthly. And so she had to lean in more with the kids during that time. Then she went to school, I had to lean in more. So, there's times, job changes. There could be, sickness or something with your family. So I think, to me, leadership looks like, leaning in when necessary, but also giving yourself grace along the process. That's something that, I personally have dealt with. Like, I think the last time we interviewed, having to be perfect or be seen as perfect. And I think Nikki just said that, the more I share, and I've learned to do that, to share the valleys just as much as the mountains, because people really honestly get the lesson out of the valleys, right?
Right.
They see you with the accolades and all this, great, they're going to clap for you. But when they hear the story, like when you were low, how you continue to get up, that's why I feel like people really get the lesson and really feel inspired to do the work, right? Yeah.
I think leadership can go both ways.
Yeah.
Typically, you hear that that the man's the leader or whatnot. That's kind of the role, right? But there's things that the woman of the house specializes in.
Yeah,
and the man cannot
right,
do it. She
right.
would probably take the lead on
Exactly.
it. So
exactly.
Can you talk a little bit about some of those leadership things that you would have to take over that Sean's not able to do?
Yeah. But just like he said, he can't put anything together.
She's gonna keep saying that today. I should
have put everything. But no, yeah, like I mean, really what he mentioned, if one of us is sick or something like that, like we have to fill in the gaps. And as far as, there are things that I can do with my son. Like we have different relationships with our kids. There are certain things that he may want to talk to me about, and he's going to seek me first. Particularly, well, he'll talk to his daddy about education, but if it's help with homework or something like that, he used to come to me. Now he thinks he's too smart. But, just certain things, like they see our strengths too. And so they kind of know at this point who to seek out for, whatever they need. Right. But yeah, and I think we look at it as a team. So that may be why we probably aren't answering this the way you want us to, because we don't have clearly defined roles. If somebody's out, we just fill in. Like it's one leader, and we just kind of split that role. At least that's how I
I mean, I view it. And to kind of respond, I don't think there is no cookie cutter way. Every person is different. Every couple is different.
Right.
But I think the key thing that you said is like there's no real defined. It's like we're one.
Yeah. Right.
And so when I can't, you can. Right. So that's how it sounds. And personally, I think that's what a team is.
Yeah.
Right.
You uplift.
Yeah.
When I can't.
Yep.
And and to your point, one of the things that I heard you say is like you would go to your wife, to just seek counsel.
Yeah.
Although you're gonna go out first and probably make sure it gets done, but hey, what you think about this?
Right.
So I think that's so important. That's teamwork.
True.
When I think of teams, I think the sign of a good leader is a leader that is inclusive, right? And so not one that tries to dominate and exclude. And I got it. I'm the man of this house, right? Or the woman, to say the least. You ain't nothing. You don't know how to do it. I do it, right? That's divisive.
So true. So,
no, I think it's really important. I think you guys are spot on. So it's no cookie cutter way.
Yeah.
Each go ahead.
Yeah, and I will say, I think, we're in the church, Christians, of course we live by, the man is the head of the household, but I do think we leave the part out, like the man has to cast a vision, right? And a lot of times I think sometimes I'm, speaking from just having different homies in my life, and, and be like, I'm the head of the household. I set the vision. However, you have to have the vision and the substance behind it for your wife to follow.
Right.
And so, there has been, I would say maybe some younger days when we first got married, I wasn't clear on the vision. Yeah. And so I can't really expect her to follow, if I'm not really saying, hey, this is the vision. Do I have a buy-in? Do you agree? Do we both feel like we can do this together? What's the plan for us to really, attack this particular goal or whatever the case may be? Now we literally, and there may be another question, we literally sit down at the top of each year. Like we do a budget goal, we do goals for our marriage, and she hates it. We do, it's because it's a business. At the end of the day, you have to run your household like a business. So even my kids, they get involved. They present their goals, and we do what? Check-ins every quarter, right? And, our thing to say is, you may be weak on one. How can we lean in to support you? So like my son has to go to work out 3 times a week. Yeah. He hadn't really been doing that. He's super into the books, he doing the ACT and all this other stuff. And so at the end of the quarter, I'm like, what do we need to do? Do we need to get you up earlier? Do I need to go with you in the evening? Now he's on it. But we had to attach something to it because he loves to go out to eat on Friday. So I said, you know what? Goals only happen, the rewards happen when you do the work. So if you don't do it, we're going to stop giving you this, what is it, Chings or whatever he like to go, hot wings or whatever. And so he's learning earlier, like I got to put in that work in order to get the reward. That's how we pretty much live our day to day.
So I would say this is like his leadership thing in our house. He holds us all accountable to what we said we were going to do. These check-ins, like we pull out these vision boards and what was on it? Have you done it?
Pull it out. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh. But it encourages us because we don't like to tell him, no, we haven't done it. Or, we don't want to look like we haven't bought into the vision that he we've established for the family. So it like, this is his thing. And I'm glad because the kids make me tired. If they don't do it, I'm just like, just get out of my face. So that's another way. Like he fills that gap.
Let's strategize. Yeah. Let's sit down. Let's work it out. Yeah.
And I think that's so important, vision, right? how can you expect your wife to lead or follow you if you don't have that vision?
So true.
And then you hear I guess submission has become like a bad word all of a sudden. But when you think about it, if you want a woman that is submissive, what is she submitting to?
Right. So true.
So if you're not doing anything, like got a plan, got a vision, then you can't expect for your wife to submit. So
true.
and it's not a bad word. It's just and sometimes you may have to submit to certain things. So it's a two-way street, right. But for whatever reason, it's become bad. And I'm glad we're having this conversation so we can kind of unpack that. It's not bad, but the important thing is that you have a vision.
So true, so true.
I mean, if you're going to lead a household, you got to have a vision.
Right.
So I like the fact that you said you got to run it like a business. People think that it's. We in love. Love is part of it, but it's an emotion.
Right.
It's a feeling.
It's not gonna pay the bills. Right.
Right. And so, and then what if the bills are not getting paid?
So true.
What this love gonna do?
Right.
So,
what's another one? What was that? Tina Turner. What's love got to do with it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
That you do have that vision. And it sounds like it's working for you guys now.
Yeah. We haven't always been there.
Yeah,
like he
mentioned that earlier. Yep.
So no, we were very divided.
So what brought about the change?
Look, counselor mode. I told you that the last time. I'm like, man, I'm in counseling. I think I had to decide that I want to. It sounds simple, just do better, right? So, I think taking a hard look, right, at myself and I think, again, having a good partner. I remember this conversation, like, hey, this is not working, this, whatever the case may be, we are having this particular problem. Going back to the business, if you got a problem, I'd like to tell folks who I work with in my business, right? Basically, a weakness is only a threat if you don't address it, right? Everybody got weaknesses, right? It's just something that you're going to have. So, again, I think it was just a moment where I'm like, hey, I want this to work. I see the issue. I want to address it. And I just, I give it to God. Like, I think God just really stepped in and really saw my heart, right? And said, hey, kind of like I do by kids, they strategize what we gonna do, right? And then having a mate or spouse that was just open to like help me as well through I told her, I think maybe a few months ago, I was like, I think I text you, I was like, thank you for loving me during the low times, right? Because again, there's so many people that, man, they run during those times, right? Because it doesn't look great. Sometimes it don't smell great, right? And you like, hey, I could jump to the next, especially the world we live in today. Everything's so instant. And really going back to say, hey, let's do the work. And if you want to do it, I'm here to do it with you. Yeah. And so that's why, again, having a great spouse that brought about the change. Yeah. Yep.
And I'll say I'm not that great. I had to choose to want to work through it also and to believe that it was, like that we were going to do what we said we were going to do. And so it took time. Like he had to be patient with me too, because I was stuck in like the past, and like, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And then yesterday I was just kidding with him. I can't remember, what did you do?
I think I bought
he paid
for
like,
something. I can't remember.
Like my friend makes us shout out to Jada 1185, her business, but she makes she makes body butters and things like that. And because he's extra, I can't just have it to myself. Like, he has to have his own.
Got it on today, brother. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, but he paid for mine. I was like, why are you being nice to me? But like now we're there. But in the past, I'd have been like, why is he being nice to me? But now, we really have done the work to just, make our marriage work and to.
Yeah. And really take care of each other, right? I think we've been great partners. And I honestly think at the beginning it was more of a so I don't want to get this wrong. I'm saying you should design like a business, but it's a relationship, right? So you got the human elements that's tied to it. I think at the beginning we were like great partners, right? No bills were ever laid. Never. We never worry about credit cards. Like I got some, friends who, whatever, finances, different things like that. We've never had those issues. Like we run our household pretty well, right? Budgeting and stuff like that. But I think in that process of running it like a business, you forget about the person. So, we joked about it yesterday, but it would be times, again, man, you got, again, transparent, would be times where, hey, I'm picking up my own food, and she got her own stuff. And, we like getting home. And that was like the norm, especially with kids coming to play, because you got to bring them in. And, I think with moms, nurturers, right, they going to take care of the kids or, and so it was times where I felt like, man, I'm in the back and the kids in the front, so those are things we have to really address too. So again, we're telling you how it looks now. But we also want to be transparent because number one, we never want to be seen as perfect. We're far from it, bruh. Like we're far from it. But we're saying that if you put in the work, you can get where we are now. So shout out to any younger couples who might be experiencing something, anybody, decide to put in the work, counseling help. We had to continue counseling because like she just said, even though I was changing, there were certain triggers that she'd be like, now, why are you doing this? And I'm like, I want to do it, or this is what I want to do. And she had to address some of those things as well. But it took help from, Stacey Spencer and Rhonda to be like, now, if you're going to forgive them, you got to forgive them. You can't keep bringing this up, this type of deal. So, yeah.
Is that, you said you chose to like make it happen, right? So with divorce rates at 70 and 80% in this day and age, why are people not choosing? Why do you think people are not choosing to fight through and make it work?
It is work to to like every day, you have to say I want, well, not every day, but you have to choose to be in a marriage. Like you have to choose because we're two different people. We've always been two different people, and now 20 years later, we're even more different than we were before. So I think people just don't want to do the work, well, not everyone, but some people just, it's easier to just sometimes walk away, I think, than it is to stay in. It also, to me, depends on what it was founded upon. Like if it wasn't founded upon something that was real in the first place, then it's probably easier to walk away. I think several reasons, but I think we kind of had to remember why we got into it in the first place and just kind of relearn each other. And I think, as you were talking about how we were kind of separate in the beginning, and I was thinking about the questions that you asked about parenthood and, not having a father. I think we both saw our mothers doing everything themselves, and we kind of set up our marriage like that because that's what we saw.
Well, you say doing it yourself, so set up the marriages and you were kind of separate in a sense in terms of where you were going or thinking, although you was together?
Just even doing things like buying food.
Yeah.
Like I'm the mama, I'm going to buy the kids food. I don't even know what time he'll be home.
Yeah.
Figure it out when you get there. Really doing, we did everything.
Yeah. And I was going to say, just to go deeper, I think, again, when you see, because again, our moms, right, single parents, hats off again to single parents, right? But, they do everything. Like a lot of times, especially if the relationship is not there with the dad, they're the dad, they're the mom, they take care of the house, they got to just make it happen. So I think you see that. And again, our parents who are really great parents set high expectations, right? So my mom, it was nothing for her to pick up an extra shift because she had to pay something at the school, or I never went without, And so I think when you get into marriage, and if that's all you see, you're kind of operating in that because you didn't see two parents really working together. So we really didn't know what that looked like. We just saw my mom, like if a car got to get fixed, she figured out how to do it on her own. I remember, I was super, as at Overton, super involved in different things like that. I never missed anything. Like I remember my choir teacher, Dr. Hedgeman, rest her soul. She was like, for the longest, I thought you had two parents because I never missed anything. But at the same time, I think when you only see that, you don't have the blueprint of how to work together, like our kids are getting, if that makes sense. The cheat code, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So you guys are successful in your own right. How important is it, or can you give examples of how one or the other can support the person that may be trying to drive towards something? How does that support look, in you guys' relationship to where it does help propel that person to that next level?
Yeah, yeah. You want to
You go
start?
ahead.
Yeah. So I was gonna say again, she is the number one. She pushes me, right? So anything I come, sometimes we like, look here, we're gonna cut this out on the weekend because I love, number one, we both love what we do, but sometimes, having those boundaries too to make sure, like, hey, we're gonna cut off this weekend. But I say all that to say, I trust her judgment. I trust her expertise, right? Uh, she helps me to think through both sides of things. So, like, when I come to her, it's like, well, have you thought about this? Or, and my wife is super, like, she's straightforward. So, it's no fluff, right? So, I feel like the world is designed that way, right? So when I go out, oh, Sean, you great, Nikki, you great, whatever the case may be. But I'm like, nah, I really need somebody to help me think through this. Like, you don't want yes people in your life, and you don't want yes people in your marriage.
Right.
Like, I want her to tell me before the world tells me, if that makes sense. And I trust that I have a spouse that would do that. It's no, I've heard people be like, man, my wife jealous, or I can't tell my husband this. And I'm like, that's a sad place to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you look for the world to give you those things, right? And so I say all that to say, I think we both pour into each other. I think that's why, again, going back to your original question, you got to have someone where both of your cups are full. She killing it on her own. Like, she killing it, right? I feel like I'm doing pretty well. But when we come together, it just like this whole different thing that comes together by us just being together, right? Pointing to each other. And also the support. So when I'm doing things, if I'm traveling or whatever, she gonna be there to support, number one cheerleader. And I hope I'm there for you, the same thing. And so to answer your question, it means everything, man. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think you answered it pretty well. I'll say, and we also look at like the things that we do. We want to leave things behind to our kids. We are working, like when you mentioned generational wealth offline. That's something that we're working on. So anything, I don't own a business personally, but I'm doing my best to support his business because we want to leave that behind to our children. Like, we're really trying to set them up so that they can pass things on to their kids. So I think that's a part of our, larger vision. And so it's easier to support because we're going in the same direction and really want to leave something behind to our kids.
That kind of leads me to the next question. How can couples work together to create that unified environment in the house?
Yeah, I think, number one, communication is so very important. And again, we hadn't always been great at it, right? And so now what we do, again, I hate to keep saying the business, but, we look at our calendars weekly, literally, and that's something she hate doing. But, I travel a lot, so we have to, every Sunday, usually Monday, we'll look at our calendars for the week, right? Now we even look at it for the month. Okay. And so we kind of say, hey, where do I need to plug in more? Or, do this, vice versa. And then also, I think, checking in. So in the past, it would just be like, okay, I got to go out of town Tuesday. You good? I may not even say you were good. I don't know. I may be like, I'm out of town. And knowing that, again, because she does such a great job at it. And again, knowing, man, coming from a single parent, they just going to make it happen. But then, like, checking on her too, like, are you, like, so now I'm like, okay, I'll make sure you got food in the refrigerator. I'm making sure, like, if I'm on the road, like, I'm checking in, or Caleb, I'm calling my mom, to pick up from school or whatever the case may be. So, like, being proactive, but also making sure she's good along the process, and she does me the same way. Yeah.
How important is it to have a support system outside of you? Because I'd imagine, you said you got your doctorate too, right? So that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work and sacrifice. Now, did you get that while married or so while married, right? So, busy. How important is support outside of the household to accomplish those things and to support one another? How important is that support outside?
Yeah, both of our mothers do a lot to help us with the kids. And, if I don't know how well we would do without their support. They are both retired now, thank God. So they can kind of help pick up or just even to come here, we had to get my mom, we were supposed to anyway, to get her to take our daughter to a birthday party. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how well we would do. I don't know how much we would be able to do if we didn't have outside support. I don't know. I don't think we would be doing as well as we are
So
now.
true. So
I
true.
really don't.
Yeah. So definitely shout out to our moms. And then of course we have extended. My dad is still present, my
yeah.
stepmom.
Oh, yes.
And even it looks in for us, our moms are in Memphis. And so, pick up. But like my stepmom, we can call her and she's gonna pray or she's gonna send a scripture daily. So those things mean just as much as well. Like, hey, because it could be a day that life be life. And as we say, I wake up, I'm tired because I have been on the road and going through this and, my stepmom going to send a scripture or, I'm like, man, it was right on time, and even going outside that last layer, again, we have great friends because again, every piece like adds into you. Right. So like having good friends who going to support you, even the school environment, all of those pieces kind of go together. I guess it's like what takes a village to raise a child, a church, all of those pieces really help out. Yeah.
So one thing we hadn't talked about, which I'm sure it happens in everybody's relationship.
I'm scared.
Therapy session. Conflict. Now, there's going to be conflict. So, how does a couple you spoke on, we're individuals, right? We have our own thinking. We try to align our thinking, but sometimes there's just going to be conflict. So, can you talk a little bit about not too deep, I guess, but some conflict and how you're able to overcome it, and what kind of advice could you give young couples in resolving that conflict?
Yeah, we address it now. I used to not say anything. I would just let things build up. And then I would just pop, instead of addressing and communicating. And so I encourage anybody, young, old, whatever, go ahead and address it because it's not going to get better if you don't say, because he can't read my mind. And so I think, if there is conflict now, I don't try to, act like it'll go away because I like to keep peace. I don't like arguing. I don't like to have to bring things up, but I will do it now because if I don't, then we're going to fight,
right.
Because I'm going to continue, like he's going to continue to do whatever it is because I haven't said anything.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, well, then she must be okay with it. Well, in the past anyway. Yeah. And then it would just blow up. Like we wouldn't have fights maybe once a year.
Yeah.
Because I never said anything. I just sat there and was like, okay, it'll get better. I'm going to pray it away. No, like faith without works is dead. So if I didn't open my mouth and say something, then it wasn't going to get any better. So now we're finally to the point to where if I'm not doing something that he needs me to do, or if he's not doing something that I need him to do, or there's a conflict somewhere, we address it.
Man, we said a lot there. No, I mean, good, a lot of good things. And again, just to add to, I think she covered it pretty, really well. I think again, going back to, not assuming, right? So again, addressing it, not assuming, again, counseling, right? I think they give you some necessary tools because I remember, I think it was Stacey Spencer and Rhonda. It was like, do y'all fight fair? And we was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah. So fight fair is just like, we didn't really know because we fought pretty fair. But, there's some situations where couples are calling each other out their names, abuse, right? I mean, just toxic, right? And so I feel like, not saying we perfect in that way, but I feel like for the most part, we fought fair. But it was just out of like context because, again, like, she may let something go on and I'm like, I didn't even know I was doing this. And then sometimes I would know and then she wouldn't say nothing. So I'm like, okay, cool. It must be cool, right? So I think
I'm sitting there hating.
Right. So she like, now why are you doing this again? I'm like, well, she didn't say nothing the last 2 times. I'm gonna continue to do it. Right. And then also knowing, the right time, all of the basic things. But I think also now we are more proactive. And so as I just mentioned in the last question, we try to do check-ins. Before, we wouldn't really check in. They'd just be like, I'm gone. I got to go out of town. Now, again, we look at the schedules. I try to make sure that, again, you're okay while we're doing all of this, right? I'm trying to make sure she's involved. Like, man, thank you today for even having her here. Because a lot of times, what I do is me, right? And representing my business and just being in public. And there were times where I didn't pull her in to the vision as much. So she'll hear about it or like she'll see it on Facebook.
And let me just mention, they have failed those ventures that he tried to do early on. So this is like, this one is successful because he was able to really get me to buy into this vision. So he included me. There might have been one or two before dead. It was kind of like a Miss Celia until you do right by me.
So did he include you in those visions?
No.
Right.
I would literally see on Facebook or this man on the news. Right.
Like, what? And again, I think it goes back to being, immature, right? Yeah. And then when you're not in sync with each other. So honestly, man, you got us in counseling again, brother. I would think like she ain't got the time to care or listen because she got her stuff going on. I'm over here again operating in silos, right? Not having that time where we came together. Now I'm bringing her in too much,
That's why I don't listen to his podcast because I listen to his
she gonna know. Like when I left you the last time, I came home like, man, that was the most intimate, and I told everything. She still didn't listen, but you're gonna listen today. On the way home, I'm gonna play it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So you spoke on that you would hold it in, and then you eventually talk about it. But then you kind of got past that, and you didn't hold it, and you would talk about it. How important is it? Because sometimes us men, we can have our egos, and we don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
How important is it to just receive?
Man,
that's a very good question. You could have a wall up which would discourage her from talking. So how important is it to just receive and listen and be present there while she's telling you, what's on her mind? How
right. I think I had to learn to see her as, again, being transparent. I think in the past, it would be like, okay, she nagging about this, or she don't want to see me win. Sometimes we create this own narrative. Or it was because I didn't bring her to the vision, so she probably didn't know what the vision was. So some of those simple things, like you look back at it, be like, there was food. We'll laugh at some stuff even today. Be like, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but I even remember telling, I posted on Facebook one time, my wife made me buy a gift card from her from Christmas because she don't drink Starbucks, and I love Starbucks, and I had to give her $25. It was joking, but it did show us we had been operating in this partnership. So she well, I don't drink it, so I'm gonna need my $25.
That's my gift.
And it's my gift. But I'm it's coming out of one household.
Right.
At the end of the day, you can make, you didn't get the 25 for the Starbucks, but I'm gonna have to cover some, So I say all this to say, I think once you get in rhythm, I hate to use the word balance, right? Or I think when you get in sync with each other, things just kind of flow naturally, and you see her as a gift. And not the enemy. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I'm going to come to my wife with everything because I'm like, man, I'm going to get, if I would pay somebody a lot of money for the advice she's giving me, compared to just going to my wife, and she's going to give me the support, number one, and and there has been times I come and because she is so direct, she'll just go to and be like, hey, look here, A, B, C. And then she'll come back and be like, I didn't mean for that to come out that way. Yeah. So I think knowing how to apologize, give each other grace, man, again, we're learning on the job. And that's most marriages. So again, there for each other, support, man, win-win situation. When I win, she win. What's the Beyonce thing? When the family feud, nobody wins.
That's Jay-Z.
Jay-Z, yes. And so you see how she just filled in, and I do that all the time. And so, man, we got each other back. I think if people operate like that in marriages, man, and then we're friends first. We enjoy being around each other.
We do.
We enjoy, we like going out, being traveling, experiencing first things together. We know, man, we're breaking generational curses. It's gonna be tough. We know God has given us that assignment. Man,
I think the curse is broken.
I look receipt.
It's broken. I mean, successful in your own right in multiple ways. The values and things that you're instilling in your children. I mean, that in and of itself is a success.
I appreciate
right?
That.
Because, you guys said that you didn't necessarily have that blueprint, but now you're creating that blueprint. Sounds broken to me.
Well, look,
Man,
take it.
appreciate that,
Thank you.
brother.
Let him
Yes, sir.
use you.
Sounds broken to me.
Yes.
I just want to add one thing to
Mhm.
that. I had to learn the timing too. You
Mm.
asked about him receiving, but I had to learn like when to bring things. Even now, I have to look at his body language and look at what we have going on. If there is something that I need to bring to him that's serious or whatever, I have to make sure the situation, we've created the atmosphere to where I can bring it so he can actually listen.
Right,
Mm.
right.
So,
Yeah.
So you spoke a little bit about the failed opportunities and didn't include your wife. At what point did you decide like I can't keep doing this? I may need to include my wife in something. Because I mean, apparently it was a good choice.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Apparently it was good, but what clicked? And to say, hey, let me include my wife in on these.
Yeah, man. I think again, I hate to keep bringing this up, but I really think, man, it shouldn't be a secret, but counseling, man, is so key. And I sure it is. I went out with, man, I would make sure to again to shout Stacey Spencer and Rhonda Smith out. I went individually because I was just working on some things by myself.
Mhm.
And I remember Stacey Spencer saying, man, every time, you leave the house, most of the time, Nikki probably won't be with you or your kids, but you have to always envision them with you. So, like, you got your two kids in the back seat, your wife is on the side, even though they're not with you. So, every decision you make, man, personally, professionally, you always have to consider them.
Mhm.
And so, I think it's weird how things like click like from different people. But I think him saying that, and so everything I do now, we were just talking about, generational wealth, like even looking to invest in a property or whatever the case may be, I'm like, man, I'm doing this for my kids now. And we laugh. I was like, man, I wish I was like immature and I could just go out here and buy, a new car or whatever. But I'm like, I'm trying to buy this house because I'm know I could pass it along to my daughter and my son. And so I think that's just how I operate now. Like everything before I make a decision, I'm like, let me consider them. Yeah.
What's some advice you guys could give mothers and fathers in terms of things that you wish that you would have done sooner in you guys' relationship?
you can go first.
No, I'm trying to think. That's
Yeah.
a very good question, man. That's a very good question. I think I would say for me, again, and I think you were mentioning what younger couples or just anybody who's considering
Yeah,
getting married. I think again, man, work on you, right? I think again we come from, and it's way better now. Like I'm in the college space. I think I was telling Nikki the other day I was at some college, I can't remember, it was maybe Albany State, and this young man came in with therapy works, and I was like, man, it's just good to see like young people like knowing that it works. They're starting earlier, right? And it's like it's great to talk about, right? Like everybody got a trainer. You may have a financial person, an insurance person. To say I got a mental health person or a coach that's helping me to navigate, because life is hard, man. So again, I think if you can get counseling in earlier, again, I remember even I think one of our, somebody we knew, their kids started counseling like at 11 or 12, and at first I was like, it's kind of weird, and then and I was like, no, like if I would have got like how much different would I be,
Yeah.
And so I think again, really normalizing counseling, working on yourself, and know it's a process, man. Give yourself grace along the journey. Um, I think that's my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
mine is you're on the same team. Don't
Yeah.
come into it too individualized,
Mhm.
kind of like we did. It took us years to get on the
Mhm,
same
mhm.
page. So if you can just, recognize early on that it's one marriage, one team, and you're trying to work on that together, not just I'm doing my thing, he's doing his thing, and then we'll figure it out somewhere in the middle. I wish we had known earlier.
Yeah. So true.
Um, y'all touched a little bit on like we like hanging with each other. We
Mhm.
so how important is it to still to date each other, right?
Mhm.
Because that's essentially how it started,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so many people get wrapped up into the nuances of, we got this to do, we got
Mhm,
this, I don't
mhm.
have the time, got the kids,
Yeah.
but the relationship wouldn't even produce kids had you not dated. So,
Mhm, mhm.
how important is it to continue to date within the marriage.
Man, it's everything. It's
Mhm.
everything. You have to, again, we keep saying do the work. That's part of the work,
Yes.
right? And so we try to, again, super busy, but we had to learn and put each other first. So every year we're going to do a big trip. We're going to Antigua this year in June. And so super excited about that. I remember one year we got all this stuff going on, and the rest of the year was just terrible, right? Because we didn't take that time to unplug. Now we try to do, and I think this is a good tip for couples. We're still working on it. It's not perfect, but we try to alternate months. So like, I think the last time I came to you was my month. I was going to flight. She didn't have a clue. I was like, just be ready by this time. We had flight. And then I feel like we got to the point we got the money, right? I like to look at experiences, so like, think about me or type of things, right? Which that's not really her strength. So so I think, man, we being transparent. So I think the last time we did
Did what?
it was a Valentine's Day.
Went to flight.
Went to flight, and then we created experience. So like I did a spa night for her.
Yeah.
Like I did the spa sign, man, the flowers, but it cost $30.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it was so she came in, she had went, I think, take her daughter to her mom, had the music playing, and she's like, oh, and I was like, I only spent $30. But it showed me you have to really be thoughtful, create those experiences. And so we alternate months. So I think this is your month.
Next month.
Next month. Okay. And so this year we want to focus on, again, we got, we're blessed to say finances. We're pretty good. So it's not just buy me a purse or buy me the cologne, even though, sometimes we like those things too. However, I feel like the most things come out of it when you really think about somebody. Like, he likes this, let me create this, or let me figure out how to do it, and then make it happen. So I love to, her month coming up, I'm going to let you know what she did.
And I'm terrible at it. I am so bad at it. I'm an overthinker,
Right.
and it stresses me out because I'm like, oh, is he going to like it? So I'm working on it. So he'll have to, this grace he's been talking about, he'll have to allow me some
call
grace.
you, brother.
So the month thing. So this could be something, an idea for somebody that may not know.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing a month. So what does that entail? Like, it's your month, it's your month.
Yeah.
What does that entail?
You have complete, it's on you, right?
In terms of
it could be.
What does that
Planning
look
the
like?
day.
Each week, each.
Just
one
once.
day.
Yeah,
Oh,
once
once
day.
out of the
Yeah,
month?
we don't have that much time.
Yeah. Just one
One day of a month.
One day.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
we
do.
We, like you said, we check in through the week.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
We're a married couple. So
Right,
we do
right.
what married couples do. We have dates.
Yeah.
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 And
Outside.
dates, we'll go Fridays, maybe go be like when we leave here, we may go to Seasons.
But
and
something
grab some wine.
purposeful, y'all
But
make it.
so that's to me,
one.
we just
Okay.
taking time to come together.
Like
but
that.
this date night, you put some intention, some thought behind it,
Yeah.
right? And so that's kind of what we like to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never heard of that, but that's pretty good. If I get married, I'll add that to mine.
Please do.
Gotcha.
And I'm gonna hit y'all up and let y'all know how it goes.
Hit him up,
We'll bill you
'cause I'm
later.
not good.
We'll
Yeah.
bill you later. Yes.
Bill me. All right. Well, kind of brings us to the end,
Yeah.
and definitely appreciate you all blessing us with your stories, your time. Certainly, really appreciate it. Just the practical advice. I think you guys are just really good examples of how to work through and get to a certain point. I think the big takeaway is that we're not the same how we started, so we're constantly evolving. Meaning we have to evolve individually.
Yeah.
We have to evolve together, and the best thing to do is do it together.
Man,
And,
so
If
true.
you try to do it by yourself, I think that's kind of how things start to
Right.
fall apart.
Right.
So,
Man.
definitely appreciate
No.
you guys coming, and you all are the first couple to come.
Oh,
So
man.
I wanted to make sure that I like the last interview. I was like, I gotta get you back. So this is kind of how we got here, and this series is just so important. We started with the origins of the fatherless epidemic, and then just recently, which will release just the importance of mentorship with boys and girls, and now here we are, the roles of fathers and mothers in the home, and so Series is going good, and I certainly appreciate it. You all are kicking off a couple next week. It'll be a couple a week after that.
Okay.
And going to end it with a couple. So,
Yeah.
So you all are the first couple, and certainly appreciate the blessing with your time.
Yeah, and thank you for what you're doing, man. Our goal is that it helps just even if one couple.
Yeah.
But thank you, man. You changing the game with this podcast thing, man. Great job. Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Families thrive when men and women stand together. If you believe in building strong homes, share this episode and subscribe to the Purpose Pursuit podcast, because real leadership starts at home, and we're taking it back.